New York to London, 3,500 miles. You believe it, you've flown it, you've measured it, it's real. Leonard Susskind says it's a trick, a mental construction, an illusion your brain creates to make sense of quantum information you can't process. The distance isn't there. It never was. Your mind invented it. And the physics proving this will shatter your entire sense of what far away actually means. Stand up. Walk across the room. You just traveled a distance, maybe 10 feet, maybe 20. You moved through space. You covered ground. The distance was real. Now sit back down. Let me destroy that experience completely. Leonard Susskind says you didn't travel through space. You didn't cover distance. You didn't move at all in any fundamental sense. What you experienced as walking across a room was your brain constructing a story about changing quantum correlations, creating the sensation of distance from something that has nothing to do with distance at all. Distance in space is a mind trick, not a property of reality, a psychological artifact, an evolutionary tool your brain uses to navigate. But mistaking it for physical reality is like mistaking your dream last night for actual travel. And I'm going to prove it to you, right now. Start with something nobody tells you in physics class. Space is not empty. It's not a void. It's not a container that objects move through. Space is quantum fields, everywhere, always. Every cubic millimeter of empty space contains electron fields, quark fields, photon fields, all of them, in their ground state, minimum energy, but there, fluctuating, active. When you measure the distance between 2 points, you're not measuring empty space between them. You're measuring the correlation between quantum field states at those 2 points, how strongly the field here is entangled with the field there, how much information they share. Distance is correlation strength. That's it. That's the entire story. Points that are close have strong quantum correlations. Points that are far have weak correlations. The distance you experience is your brain's interpretation of correlation strength in quantum fields. Susskind demonstrated this with the holographic principle. All the information in a volume of space is encoded on the boundary of that volume, on the surface, not in the interior. The 3D volume you think exists is a projection, a hologram, generated from 2D information on a distant boundary. This means the distance inside the volume isn't real. It's not fundamental. It's emergent. It arises from how information on the boundary is organized. But the boundary is 2D, no depth, no interior distance. The distance you experience is manufactured from 2D data that has no concept of depth. Your brain takes this 2D information, processes it, creates the sensation of 3D space, creates the experience of distance. But the distance is not in the data. It's in the processing. It's in your mind. Now think about what this means. Look at something across the room, a lamp. You see it over there, 10 feet away. That distance feels real, fundamental. But what's actually happening? Photons from the lamp hit your retina, create signals in your optic nerve. Your brain processes these signals, compares them to signals from other objects, builds a spatial model, places the lamp over there in that model. The distance is in the model, not in reality. Your brain is running a simulation, a 3D representation of quantum field correlations. The simulation has distances, has depths, has separations. But these are features of the simulation, not features of reality. You live inside the simulation. You mistake it for reality. But it's not. Susskind points to experiments with sensory deprivation. When you remove visual and auditory input, people's sense of space dissolves. The room doesn't feel distant anymore. The walls don't feel far. Space itself becomes indefinite, vague, because the brain is no longer getting the data it needs to construct the spatial model. The distance was never there. It was always constructed, always a mental projection. Cut off the input and the projection fails. Space disappears, distance vanishes, because they were never real. They were always in your head. Now add quantum mechanics. Heisenberg uncertainty principle. You cannot measure both position and momentum precisely. The more you know where something is, the less you know how fast it's moving. This is fundamental, not a limitation of instruments, a limitation of reality. This means distance at small scales is fundamentally fuzzy, indefinite, uncertain. You cannot say exactly how far apart two quantum particles are. The question doesn't have an answer, not because you don't know, because the distance doesn't have a definite value. Reality itself is uncertain about distance. At the Planck scale, 10 to the power 35 meters, quantum fluctuations make space-time itself uncertain. Distance becomes meaningless. Space fluctuates, appears and disappears, stretches and contracts. Virtual particles pop in and out. The entire concept of distance breaks down completely. Susskind asks what this means for your experience of walking across a room. At the quantum level, the distance you walked is indefinite, uncertain, fluctuating. But your brain averages over all this quantum chaos, constructs a smooth, definite classical distance, 10 feet, stable, real-seeming, but it's an approximation, a useful fiction, not reality. Now relativity destroys what's left. Special relativity. Different observers in different reference frames measure different distances. Length contraction. A spaceship moving at high speed is shorter in the direction of motion. To an outside observer. From inside the ship, nothing changed. Who's right? Both. That's the devastating part. Distance is not absolute, not objective, not the same for everyone. It's observer-dependent, relative, perspectival. You measure 10 feet between 2 points. Someone moving past you at high speed measures 9 feet. Someone else measures 11 feet. All of you are correct. There is no objective distance, no right answer. Only perspectives, only measurements, only mind-dependent constructions. This is not a minor technical detail. This destroys the concept of distance as a property of space. Distance is not in space. Distance is in the relationship between the observer and space. Change the observer, and distance changes. Because distance is not fundamental. It's derived, emergent, constructed. General relativity makes it worse. Curved space-time. Mass warps geometry. Near a black hole, space is so curved that normal notions of distance don't work. The distance around the event horizon divided by the distance through the center doesn't equal pi. Geometry is non-Euclidean. Distance becomes coordinate dependent. You can choose coordinates where the black hole is far away, or coordinates where it's close. Different coordinate systems, different distances, both valid, neither more true than the other. Distance is a coordinate choice, not a fact about reality. Susskind emphasizes this point relentlessly. General relativity has no preferred distance, no canonical way to measure. You choose a metric. That choice determines distances, but the choice is arbitrary, conventional, not determined by physics. Physicists use different metrics for different problems, different distance definitions, all correct, all describing the same space-time, because distance is not in the space-time, it's in the description, in the formalism, in the mathematics we use to represent reality. Now the deepest cut. Quantum entanglement. Two particles can be entangled, quantum mechanically connected. Measuring one instantly affects the other, regardless of distance, faster than light, violating every intuition about space and separation. Einstein hated this, called it spooky action at a distance. But experiments prove it's real. Measure the spin of one entangled particle. The other particle's spin becomes definite, instantly, even if it's across the galaxy. No signal travels, no communication, just instant correlation. How is this possible? Susskind's answer. Because the distance between the particles is illusion. At the quantum level, entangled particles are not separated. They're one system. The spatial separation you see is emergent, macroscopic, not fundamental. ER equals EPR. Einstein-Rosen bridges equal Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen entanglement. Entangled particles are connected by microscopic wormholes. Geometric connections through space-time. The particles appear separated in 3D space, but they're actually connected through quantum geometry. No real distance between them. Distance is what you see when you don't look at quantum correlations, when you average over entanglement, when you construct classical space-time from quantum information. The distance emerges, but it's not fundamental. It's derived, approximate, false. Now I'm going to take you somewhere your brain will fight against. because what I'm about to show you contradicts every sensory experience you've ever had. But the mathematics is undeniable, and Susskind has proven it beyond doubt. Your brain constructs space, literally builds it from scratch, every moment, continuously, using sensory data. But the construction is not neutral, not passive. Your brain makes choices, assumptions, shortcuts, and these choices determine what space looks like to you. Vision is the clearest example. Your eyes receive 2D images on the retina, flat, no depth, but you experience 3D space. How? Your brain constructs depth, uses cues, parallax, shading, size, movement, combines them, generates the sensation of distance, of depth, of 3 dimensions. But the 3D space is not in the input, it's in the processing. Your brain creates it, invents it. You experience the invention as reality, but it's not. It's a useful model, an evolved tool, not truth. Susskind points to people who gain vision after being blind from birth. They don't immediately see distance, they see flat, colors and shapes, but no depth, no distance. Their brain hasn't learned to construct it yet. Gradually, with practice, they learn. The brain builds the machinery, creates the sensation, but it's learned, constructed, not inherent in the visual data. This means distance is literally a learned mind trick, not a discovered property of reality, a created interpretation of sensory data. You learned to see distance as a child. Your brain practiced, got good at it. Now it happens automatically, feels innate, feels real, but it's manufactured, always was. Now add proprioception, your sense of where your body parts are. Close your eyes. You still know where your hand is. You feel it, the distance from your hand to your shoulder, real, definite, except it's not. Proprioception is nerve signals from your muscles and joints, processed by your brain, constructed into a body map, a spatial representation of your body. The distances in that map are not measurements, they're interpretations. Your brain's best guess based on signal patterns. Phantom limb syndrome proves this. People who lose an arm still feel it, still sense its position, still experience distance from shoulder to missing hand. The distance feels real, but the hand is gone. The distance cannot be real. It's in the brain, always was. The brain is generating it, creating it, even though there's nothing there to measure. Your entire sense of bodily distance is phantom, generated, simulated. The body map in your brain is not measuring real distances, it's constructing distances from neural signals. The distances are in the map, not in the body. Susskind extends this to all of space. Every distance you experience is like phantom limb distance, generated by your brain, constructed from quantum field correlations, interpreted as spatial separation, but not real, not fundamental, not actually there in the way you think. Now, the holographic principle destroys what's left. If the universe is a hologram, if all information is on distant boundaries, then the 3D space you experience is a projection. The interior is empty, illusory, generated from 2D boundary data. When you walk across a room, you're not moving through 3D space. You're moving through a 3D projection of 2D information, like a character walking across a TV screen. The character experiences depth, experiences distance, but it's all projection, all illusion. The screen is flat, no actual depth, no actual distance. Your brain is the TV, reality is the flat screen. The 3D space you experience is the image on the screen, feels real, looks real, but it's projection, manufactured depth, constructed distance, mental trick. Susskind has proven this mathematically with ADS-CFT. Anti-de Sitter space in 5 dimensions is exactly equivalent to conformal field theory on the 4-dimensional boundary. The bulk space emerges from boundary quantum mechanics. The interior distances are not fundamental. They're derived from boundary entanglement patterns. If this is true for ADS space, Susskind argues it's true for all space-time. Distance is always emergent, always derived from quantum information on boundaries. Never fundamental, never really there. Now let's talk about what distance actually is at the deepest level, not what you experience, what it actually is in the formalism, in the mathematics. Distance is defined by the metric tensor. In general relativity, the metric tells you how to measure distance. It's a mathematical object, a field. At every point in space-time, the metric has values. These values determine how distance works at that point. But here's the key. The metric is not unique. You can transform it, change coordinates, get a different metric, different distance formula, but describing the same physical space-time, same reality, different distances. Susskind asks what this means. If distance changes with coordinate choice, but reality doesn't change, then distance is not real. It's coordinate dependent, conventional, a choice in how you describe reality, not a property of reality itself. This is like choosing units, measuring in meters versus feet. The numbers change, but the physical length doesn't. Now realize that in general relativity, even the geometric relationships change with coordinate choice. Not just the numbers, the actual measured distances. All of it coordinate dependent, all of it conventional. Distance is a convention, a useful way to organize information, but not fundamental, not real in the way you thought. Now entanglement destroys it from another angle. Two maximally entangled particles, perfect quantum correlation. They're essentially one system, one quantum state, not two separate things. What's the distance between them? Spatially, they can be far apart, light years apart, but quantum mechanically, they're not separated at all. They're connected, one entity, distance zero at the information level, distance huge at the spatial level. Which is real? Susskind says the quantum description, the entanglement, the information, that's fundamental. The spatial separation is emergent. It arises from how you embed the quantum state in spacetime, but it's not intrinsic, not part of the quantum state itself. Distance is how quantum entanglement looks when you project it into 3D space. Weak entanglement appears as large distance, strong entanglement appears as small distance, but the distance is in the projection, not in the quantum state, not in reality. Now think about this viscerally. Someone you love, far away. You miss them. The distance hurts. But the distance is not real. It's your brain's interpretation of weak quantum correlation. If you were maximally entangled with that person at the quantum level, there would be no distance. You'd be the same system, one entity. The distance you feel is separation of information, decorrelation, not spatial gap. The spatial gap is how your brain represents the information separation, makes it tangible, painful, real seeming, but it's representation, not reality. This is why quantum teleportation feels paradoxical. You can teleport quantum states, reconstruct a particle's state at a distant location. The particle doesn't travel through space. The information is transmitted, and the particle state is recreated. Distance is bypassed because distance was never fundamental. Information is fundamental, and information can be copied, transmitted, reconstructed. Susskind works on quantum error correction codes that connect to spacetime geometry. The idea is that spacetime itself is an error-correcting code. Distance emerges from the code structure, from how information is redundantly encoded. But the distance is feature of the encoding, not feature of the information. Like data on a hard drive, the bits are physically separated on the disk, but the data they encode can represent things with no spatial relationships. Images, numbers, text. The spatial layout of bits doesn't reflect spatial structure of what they represent. The distance between bits is irrelevant to the data. Similarly, quantum information on holographic boundaries has spatial organization, but the distances in the emergent bulk space don't reflect distances on the boundary. The mapping is complex, non-local. The bulk distances are constructed, generated by the code, not preserved from the boundary. Now the final destruction. Your sense of distance right now, this moment. Look at something across the room. You see it far away. That sensation, that immediate experience of distance. Susskind says it's happening in your brain, not in space. The photons from the object hit your retina, create signals. Your visual cortex processes them, builds a spatial map, places the object in that map, generates the sensation of distance. All of this in your skull, in neural tissue, in electrochemical processes. The distance you see is being generated in your brain, right now, this instant, not discovered out there, not measured from reality, created, manufactured, simulated. Your brain is running a simulation of space. The simulation has distances. You experience the simulation, mistake it for reality, but step outside the simulation. Look at what's actually happening. Quantum fields everywhere, correlated, entangled, interacting. Your brain is coupled to these fields through your sensory organs, receives information, processes it, constructs a spatial model. The model is not reality, it's interpretation, representation, useful tool. Susskind asks students to really feel this, not just intellectually understand it, feel it. The distance you see right now is in your head, not out there. Your brain is creating it from quantum field data, from photon interactions, from neural processing. The sensation of distance is a quale, a mental experience, not a physical property. This is not solipsism. The quantum fields are real. The correlations are real. The information is real. But the 3D spatial interpretation, the distances, the separations, those are constructed, mental, tools your brain evolved to navigate, not truth about reality. And here's the beautiful part. Once you see this, once you really internalize that distance is a mind trick, your relationship to space changes. You stop being imprisoned by distance, stop thinking of separation as fundamental, stop experiencing distance as barrier. The person far away, not far, just weakly correlated with your quantum state. Increase the correlation through communication, through shared experience, through love. The distance dissolves, not physically, but actually, because the distance was never physical. It was always informational, always mental, always constructed. Leonard Susskind has spent his career revealing this, showing that what we think is fundamental, solid, real, is actually emergent, constructed, mind-dependent, not to destroy meaning, but to reveal deeper meaning, deeper reality, quantum information, entanglement, correlation. These are what's real. Distance is what your brain builds from these ingredients. Beautiful construction, useful construction, evolutionarily advantageous construction, but construction nonetheless. Space distance is a mind trick, not a lie, not an error, a trick in the sense of being skillful, clever, adaptive. Your brain is incredibly good at this trick, so good you believe it completely, so good you've never questioned it. Until now. Welcome to the real universe, where distance is emergent, where separation is correlation strength, where space is constructed, where your mind creates the reality you experience, not arbitrarily, not randomly, but following rules, quantum rules, information rules, rules written in the deepest laws of physics, the distance across the room, the distance to the stars, the distance to someone you love, all mind tricks, all constructed, all real only in the sense that dreams are real, vivid, compelling, meaningful, but not fundamental, not ultimately true. And that's not sad, that's liberating, because it means you're not trapped by space, not imprisoned by distance. You're creating space with every sensory moment, constructing distance with every neural firing, building reality with every thought. You are not a body in space. You are a process creating space, and now you know.